and longtime Eagles insider, NFL writer. Check out everything he writes with his Patreon account. If you don't have, you should sign up for all your Eagles insights. The one and only Geoff Mosher joins us on a Mosher Monday on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Jeff, how are you doing on this day after the Eagles qualify for the postseason?
Mosh.
Hey, man, it's an exciting time. I'm doing well. I think, we're happy to have some good stories to write this week. And I got to say, I kind of disagree with Dashawn here a little bit on the DJ skills there, because usually Gil will bring me into something a little bit more upbeat, fast-flowing, a little Nas, old. Like, it was written down. You brought me in on some real slow, I'm fast, man. I need to get going, all right? I want my next beat's got to be a little bit more upbeat.
Oh, there you go, Josh.
See, I was purposely giving Dashawn what he asked for, but now I'm suffering for giving him what he... This is the life of a DJ. You can't make everybody happy, man.
Well, I'd have gladly stepped aside if you would have gave Moshe what he wanted. There you go.
All right, Jeff. So first, let's get into the nuts and bolts of the game yesterday. Look, the team played really well. The defense executed at a high level. But I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Dashawn earlier, and I asked the listeners earlier as well. And I'm not saying this to be a negative Nancy on the day after the Eagles make the postseason, but the Eagles are now in the postseason, and they're playing the Bears. 3 straight games, Nick Foles has thrown an interception. Any concern for you of Nick Foles versus the Bears defense?
Oh, yeah, certainly. But that's more... I think that's more the Bears' defense, right, and how good they are, how well-rounded they are. It's not as much Nick Foles having an interception. He threw an interception in the Super Bowl that at the time, they were trying to really build on that lead, and they came back to haunt them, and he still had an amazing game and outdueled Brady. You get that with Nick Foles. You're going to see that interception every once in a while. But I kind of agree with your point that when you play a team like the Bears, turnovers become key. In other words, the Bears are not a great offensive team, and in particular for the last 3 or 4 weeks, they have not been Mitchell Trubisky has not been kind of an elite quarterback, not that he was to begin with, but his play has regressed a little bit, I'll say. You would go look at some of their games, and it's amazing to me. I just looked up a stat. The Eagles have gone over 350 yards as a team this year 11 times. The Bears have only done it 6 times. So they've won a lot of games because they do a great job of creating short fields, getting turnovers, and so that's why even one pick could be a costly pick if Nick Foles throws it on the road in Chicago. But you have to bank on him making, just like he's done the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's probably going to make 5 times as many positive plays as negative plays. So, but yeah, you're right to kind of say, hey, not everything is perfect. Every once in a while, he kind of makes like that pick last week that he threw was a really ugly one. And then obviously, the one that helped basically Houston kind of come back into that game. So yeah, you get that with Nick Foles every once in a while.
Geoff Mosher, follow him on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL. Inside the Birds podcast. Also check out his Patreon account, patreon.com/Geoff Mosher. Jeff, when you look at what the Eagles did to get to the postseason, yeah, they need a little bit of help on the last week of the season. It probably could have been a little bit more guaranteed if they would have beaten the Panthers and the Titans earlier this year. But there is something to be said for, though, a team getting hot at the right time of year. So do you feel like this team playing as well as they have for the last few weeks is really something that can help them going into this game versus the Bears?
Yeah, one of the comparisons I've made this year with the Eagles, at least I was trying to make because I didn't know how things were going to go for them, was I felt like that they could be a little bit like the Atlanta Falcons of last year. The Falcons didn't win the Super Bowl, but they obviously blew it in epic fashion against the Patriots, but they came back last year in 2017 and went 10-6 and made the playoffs, and then went on the road, and won a first-round game against the LA Rams. Then they came into Philadelphia, and to be honest with you, they played the Eagles better than anybody did in the postseason. And if Julio Jones hangs on to a ball, maybe they're back in the Super Bowl and winning it. Who knows? But the point is that, they had gone to the Super Bowl the year before. They came out uneven last year. They won their first 3 games, but then they lost 3 straight. So they were 3-3, and then they were 4-4 at one point. They were just this team that was really struggling to find their identity until they win 3 out of their last 4, and I think it was something like 6 out of their last 8. And then again, they get into the postseason and they upset the Rams in LA, and they come here to Philadelphia and play a really good game and just lose it at the end there. Now, so I kind of see some similarities with the Eagles coming off their Super Bowl win. Didn't really react to the way, and Doug Peterson spoke about it today. They didn't really come in with maybe the right mindset that they should have, including him with his book tours, in September. And over the last month, they figured some things out. I think they have an identity now, guys. I think that's the biggest thing is that, and I'm writing a little bit about it, especially on offense. They are a little bit more of what you saw last year with how they are almost, I don't want to say undefendable, but there's not an area right now where you say, if I take this guy out of the game, then I've got a really good shot at beating the Eagles. So if you remember last year, they only had one 100-yard rusher all year. That was LeGarrette Blount, week 4 against the Chargers, and they only had 3 100-yard efforts last year, one from Aguilar, one from Ertz, and one from Torrey Smith. Other than that, they were a very well-rounded team that balanced their running game with their passing game, and even within that, right, they would balance their running game as far as 10 carries for Ajayi, 8 carries for Blount, 5 carries for Clement, and then all 3 of those guys would be also involved in the passing game. And I think that's what you saw yesterday, and really the last few weeks most, is that Doug is really using all of his weapons. Yes, 2 weeks ago, Zach Ertz had like 12 catches against the Texans, but there were 2 guys who had over 100 yards in that game. And if you look at the last 3 weeks, it seems like there's been about 7 different receivers, 8 different receivers. Everybody's catching passes in that 15 to 20-yard range. This is a defense where, Vic Fangio is a great defensive coordinator, but he's going to go into this week saying, I don't know who I'm supposed to take out and think that I've stopped the Eagles' offense.
Moshe, I've been saying a lot today that looking at this matchup, the number one thing that concerns me is the Eagles' defense going up against Trubisky, not with his passing, but the way that he can move around the pocket with his legs. The Eagles struggle notoriously with scrambling quarterbacks. You've seen it 2 weeks ago with Deshaun Watson, with guys who can just extend the play. And Trubisky is averaging 6.2 yards per rush this year. Am I crazy to think that if anything could go wrong, that could be the one that starts it?
Yeah, so I have 2 thoughts on that, Dashawn, and really good observation. One, and I've watched Trubisky a couple of times. I'm not a huge fan, but I had a thought about Trubisky. The way he plays the game reminded me of a different quarterback, and I was afraid to say it because when you start making comparisons, people think you're crazy. But I had a discussion with a personnel man around the league who said the exact same thing I was thinking, so now I feel like it's okay to say it because this is an NFL personnel guy who made the same exact comparison. The way he plays the game with his ability to get out of the pocket and run around a lot and kind of look for that first read, and if it's not there, try to make something happen. He plays the game the way Mike Vick did when Mike Vick first came into the league. Not a pure passer, not a pocket guy, a little jittery when the pressure gets on him, but he has that ability, and I've seen it several times this year, to just kind of run in circles around guys and then be able to make that throw. The whole scramble drill. They make a lot of big plays on the scramble drill. Now, clearly he's not as fast as Michael Vick, but he is a very fast, very athletic quarterback. And you're right, if you go back to the early game against the Titans with Mariota, if you go back to who else gave him some fits this year? There was another mobile quarterback who's, named
Cam Newton.
Escaping me right now. Yeah, gave Cam Newton
Dak
obviously
Prescott.
gave him some fits there in the 4th. Dak, yeah, they've done that. But what I will say is, over the last few weeks, if you look between Jared Goff, who doesn't run around but is athletic, and then Deshaun Watson, and then even yesterday, Josh Johnson, a mobile quarterback, that's 3 quarterbacks with good athleticism, 2 with good mobility, and maybe 1 in Deshaun Watson right now, who's just, probably the most elusive quarterback in the league. I mean, he made magical plays against the Eagles. Well, the Eagles won all 3 of those games. They won it because they were able to outscore some of those teams, but the bottom line is they were able to just limit those guys enough and take away enough options. So at least the Eagles have had practice now. This will be their 4th straight week facing a guy who can, make who has athleticism and make moves outside of the pocket. So it should be a little bit more. It's a good tune-up, is what I can say.
Indeed. Jeff, looking at this year's team as far as the playoff run, now that they're in the playoffs, it's a whole new clean slate. What is the ceiling of this team? Obviously, if they can, upset the Bears, they would have to play the Saints in New Orleans, and I don't know if anyone's given them a puncher's chance to win that game, but we've seen crazier things happen before. Last time this team was in the playoffs as a wild card team, they went on the road and they beat a Giants team who was a number 1 seed in the divisional round and ended up going to the NFC Championship game in 2008. So is it far-fetched to say that this team could have another magical run this year?
Yeah, well, that wasn't the last time they were a wild card team, though, right? I mean, they lost in the wild card.
They lost to Dallas the year 2009.
Yeah,
so the year before that. I'm sorry.
Right, no problem. I think even the Green Bay in 2010 was a wild card game that they lost at home. Now they were the higher seed in that regard, but
they were a division winner, though.
Right, that's a good point. So to your point, and I'm going to go back to my Atlanta Falcons comparison from last year. The Falcons catch fire at the end of the year. They go on the road in the first round and they beat an upstart Rams team, and then they have to go to Philadelphia, which is a notoriously difficult place to play, and they play a good game, but in the end they lose, right? That's how I feel like the path can look for the Eagles. I do think they can go to Chicago. I do think they can take advantage of the fact that, kind of like Atlanta did with Jared Goff last year, that this will be Trubisky's first playoff game. A lot of those guys on the Bears are young. The first year head coach with Nagy, just like last year was a first-year head coach with Sean McVay. I think the Eagles can do that, but then they face a really, really tough draw having to go to New Orleans and then beat the Saints. And I think that they can play a much better game in the Superdome than they did, about a month and a half ago. But that's going to be that's where you start to feel a little less confident about their odds of coming out of there with a win.
Geoff Mosher joining us on the Ball Walk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Appreciate him taking the time on New Year's Eve, the day after the Eagles clinch a playoff berth thanks to a Vikings loss and an Eagles win. And speaking of that Vikings loss, there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of debate by people yesterday, even on this show today, Jeff, and that is, did Matt Nagy do the Eagles a favor? Did Matt Nagy want to face the Eagles instead of the Vikings? Did the Bears just not care who they were going to face? They just wanted to win on the last day of the season. What is your perspective on the Bears, who basically played their starters the entire game, taking out the Vikings in a very definitive manner, and now they're going to host a home game against the Eagles?
Yeah, I think that, listen, both things can be right, Josh. I mean, I think that Matt Nagy did do the right thing. Like I mentioned, he's got a team that is very, very raw, very young, needs all the experience it can get. It's no great shit. Like put it this way: if they had played poorly, and played backups and lost to the Vikings, well, everybody would be saying, "Oh my God, you now have to go play the team that just beat you. They're a division rival. You let them get hot." I don't think Nagy did the wrong thing there by playing his starters, winning the game, going into the playoffs with a very impressive win. But it does mean that they have to play the Eagles, and I'm sure if you asked Nagy, if you shot him up with truth serum and said, "Hey, all things considered, everything being equal, which team would you be rather playing right now, the Vikings or the Eagles?" He would say the Vikings. He would say he'd rather play the Vikings and not the Eagles. So I think he didn't make the wrong decision. It's just the fate of the matchup, and we'll see. The bottom line is, he's got the number 1 defense in the league. He should be pretty confident. He's done an excellent job all year. Yeah, it's a tough team, and they're the defending Super Bowl champs, but I don't think what he did strategically was the wrong thing to do.
Indeed, and that's what I said earlier. Listen, if you're a team with the 3rd seed in the NFC, you feel confident facing whoever is the 6th seed. Jeff, when you look at this weekend's playoff matchups, which one just jumps out to you as, I have to see that one? Because there are some pretty exciting ones.
Yeah, I think I'm really, curious about the Seattle-Dallas game, because I just think that the Seahawks should not be afraid of Dallas at all. And I think that if you're the Seahawks, you're thinking, so all I got to do is go into Dallas with my good running game, my good defense, beat a very mediocre Dallas offense. Now, I know they made some plays there in that game against the Giants, but the Giants are not a good team, not a good defense. We've seen that. I think Seattle's got a really good chance to go into Dallas, win that game. And if they win that, then they would wind up going to play L.A., if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, because they are the 2 seed. The thing with New Orleans is they're going to play whoever's the lower seed remaining. So,
right. So yeah. So I think that Seattle is the type of team that could go into New Orleans and win because they are so used to crowd noise from their own home stadium. They play well on the road. They have a defense that travels. They have a running game that always travels well, and they have in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in the game in Russell Wilson. So I think that they've got a good shot, whether it's playing L.A. or playing New Orleans. I think Seattle's got a nice road there. Having to beat the Cowboys in the first round should not be, terrible for them. So I think Pete Carroll's probably feeling good about his draw right now.
Looking over the NFC as a whole, if the Eagles were to get past the Bears, like Dashawn said, they would have to play the Saints in the next round. So the path for the Eagles to try to get back to the Super Bowl is extremely daunting. 2 road games, one against the Bears team, as you mentioned, one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFC. And then a Saints team for the last 7 weeks is top 3 in the NFL in points allowed. So, it seems like to me, this is going to be less about Nick Foles, and nothing against Nick Foles, but I know everyone loves Nick right now. But, Jeff, to me, the key is going to be the Eagles' defense. And we saw from Jim Schwartz yesterday, that defense had pride. They shut out the Redskins. It seems like, to me, if you're going to beat this team's in this postseason, that defense is going to have to step up. And that means that defensive line is going to have to play like they did yesterday throughout the entire postseason.
Yeah, Josh, I don't disagree with you. I think what's been really impressive about the defense in particular is the defensive line. They've had Avonte Maddox, you have to mention him as being a rookie corner. He looks like the best pick that they had in the draft. But really, those corners have been able to kind of mask their, Rasul Douglas has played well, but they've had their deficiencies or inexperience masked by a D-line that is really getting after quarterbacks. I thought that they've been getting after quarterbacks all year, but what surprises me the most and what I think is the biggest takeaway is that Michael Bennett and Fletcher Cox are coming from 2 different areas. In that Michael Bennett last year, I think, played the most amount of defensive snaps in the league for defensive linemen.
That's correct.
And here he's come and he's played probably, more than they expected, but way fewer snaps. And that has helped him be fresh and energetic. And I think everything that we said about Bennett coming here and playing so many fewer snaps and keeping him fresh has worked because he's been an absolute beast. I think he's got 8 sacks now this year, which he was leading the team for most of the year until Fletcher Cox yesterday had 3. And he's the opposite. He played only, I think, 65% of the snaps last year and has played 86% of them this year. So he has played so many more snaps, and yet instead of being tired as the year has gone on, he looks fresh and energetic and ready to go, and he's been one of the most dominating defensive linemen in the league all year, and especially over the last 3 weeks. So now he's got 10.5 sacks. It's his first time all year in his career that he's gotten that many sacks. So I think that that's really big. And Chris Long and Brandon Graham are playing very well as well. And these guys are going to have to be the key against the Bears. They're going to have to – obviously the Bears are going to try to get the Jordan Howard going, but they're going to try to get Tariq Cohen going as a runner and a receiver. So the front 6, really, the 2 linebackers, Nigel Bradham and Jordan Hicks, have been playing better as of late. I think you're absolutely right. It's on them because this Bears offense is not that great. And if you can take that run game, that screen game, that short pass to the running back game element out and make Trubisky have to beat you on 2nd and 3rd and long, that's a feather in the cap of the Eagles defense and the advantage that they're looking for.
Follow him on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL. Check out his Patreon, patreon.com/Geoff Mosher. Geoff Mosher, longtime Eagles insider, NFL writer, has joined us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Jeff, before we let you go, I need a prediction. Penn State, Kentucky tomorrow. I need a score prediction from you.
I'm going to say Penn State 28, Kentucky 21.
There we go.
All right. So we got 7-point spread, so I think that means take the over. Okay, gotcha. All right,
there
Jeff.
You go.
Appreciate your time here on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you throughout the week as we're leading people up to the Eagles game, which will be this Sunday. Of course, don't forget the Inside the Birds podcast with Jeff Billy Osborne, and Adam Kaplan.
Happy New Year, Jeff.
Happy New Year, guys. Talk to you soon.